talk about the Azure virtual machine. But before we dive deep into the to this topic, I always like to talk about where it's actually came from. Okay, so all of this innovation, when we talk about cloud computing and so on, it's all built on top of what we call it virtualization, right? So in the old days, it's even used today, right? So I don't want to say it's in the old days, but it's also on premises, you still have that what we call the virtualization software. So where you install a software on top of a physical machine and then create a virtual machines. All right. So when we define virtual machine, it is a software-based computer running its own operating system and apps on a physical servers. Okay, so virtualization software or the hypervisor create like a simulated virtual environment from a single physical computer. So allowing multiple computers or operating systems to be running into the same physical server. Let me just maybe explain a bit more. So just let me make myself smaller here, and then let me just draw some stuff here. So if I have a server, maybe I have web server or front end, and then I have also a backend which is gonna act as a database. Backend, which is gonna be a database server. Let's think the compute power of these servers. Like we have normally when we say compute power, we are talking about CPU. Maybe I have here 10 cores. Okay, this one is 20 cores, whatever. Maybe I have here like the RAM 50 gigabyte, could be more, it could be 1 tera, could be whatever. The hard disk, either it's physically attached to it, or maybe it's a SAN storage, right? So or NAS, so all of this connected via network. So maybe I have 3 terabyte of hard disk, and I have GPU, right? So GPU, which is also whatever the graphics unit, and I have network interface, maybe one or more network interface. If I install just a web server here, like something like normally to run this server, I have an operating system, so it's either gonna be Windows or Linux, right? So if I install here Apache or IIS, so IIS for Windows, Apache, or whatever is the web server engine is, I'm going to consume this, this server, this compute power into just one application or just one database, which is not resource efficient. So this is where the virtualization came from, and it's a breakthrough, right? So it's all about portability, it's all about security, it's all about cost efficient, use more software or simulated virtual machines or simulated operating system or simulated physical server, and less hardware. So now this is my hardware that even runs today in the cloud. Even Microsoft Azure is actually running Hyper-V at the end of the day. Okay, so but let's talk about it now. So I have this memory, the memory, CPU, GPU. I have my hard disk, GPU. I have my hard disk. I have my network interface. Okay, so that's the physical server. So I install on top of it a software, or it's a software called the hypervisor. Sorry, visor. This could be there's a lot of companies that manufacture this today. Like we have Microsoft. So Microsoft built something called Microsoft Hyper-V. This is actually part of Microsoft offering, like part of your Windows license, basically. So the standard you're gonna pay, like in Windows Server, the standard you're gonna pay per license, like for every virtual machine. If you buy the data center edition, which is actually where it's on Azure as well, then you have unlimited virtual machine that you can create with Windows, yeah, and so on. So you have also VMware, which is also manufactured, like this is what we call a type 1 hypervisor. So type 1, which means is that it accesses the underlying hardware or the bare metal directly. It doesn't run on an operating system. There is also type 2, which is like, you know, Oracle VBox and stuff like that, which is used for dev test environment. It's not production ready. But VMware, you have the ESXi and so on. You have the KVM from Red Hat. You have many different, like, you know, have I think from Citrix, Zen. I don't remember the name, but I think, yeah, Citrix. So you have many people are actually developing that hypervisor software. So now what happens here is, instead of I run just single application or single web server into that physical machine, now I have my physical machine here. I'm installing this software, which is also gonna allow me to create, like, or will have access to the underlying hardware directly, and then it will create more virtual machines. So now from the same server, I can create maybe 4 web servers, or maybe 1 web server and 1 database. Another one is whatever, different apps and so on. So I can create as much as I want. My own boundary is only like how much resources actually, or how much CPU and memory I have got in this physical server. That will allow me to create more virtual machines. And then back in the old days, we create like more than physical servers, like, you know, for high availability, and then we create, like, you know, cluster. And then this cluster is actually basically there is an active server and a passive server or standby, and if something happened to this server, then all of these virtual machines fail over. And that's what you see in Azure, like, you know, when you say, okay, hey, there's maintenance and stuff like that. So normally you there is a live migration or a failover that happens when there is a hardware failure, which cause, like, maybe, like, you know, your server or your host to restart. So there's a very important concept I just wanted to talk about here. First is, this is called the host, and the virtual machines, like the host, like the actual physical machine. Okay, so when I say this, and these guys are called the guests. Okay, so this is the guest VM. So each VM can be Linux or Windows. It can run, like, you know, they run full kernel. Each VM has its own CPU, memory, and they are fully isolated from each other. They have their own network interface. Of course, they share all of this from the physical infrastructure, but to that machine, they have their own IP address. They are completely separated. All right. I'm in a Windows Server machine here. I just want to show you the experience, like, you know, how easy it is to create that on, like, you know, on premises. You still have to look after the, you know, the physical machines, and you have to look at the physical servers and renewals and data center, all of this kind of stuff. But I just like to let you know that you can have that software installed on your computer, or like on a Windows client or Windows Server machine, and then you can actually create your own VMs. You don't need the cloud computing. Cloud is more of like, it's someone else's data center. So instead of you manage the underlying hardware, Microsoft look after that as well. Okay. Let me just pause till the server load and come back again. I've selected one of the servers on Azure, so it supports what we call nested virtualization. So let me just try this. Okay. So normally, you need to install the Hyper-V. So I think this machine, I don't remember, but this machine doesn't support it. But normally you have to install a machine that supports like a nested virtualization if you would like to simulate this over Azure. You can just search the documentation. You'll find, like, the series or the VM series that we will talk about. But normally you need to install the Hyper-V role from Windows Server, and then you will have that software installed into the machine directly, and then the operating system will switch from from the main partition or maybe the main OS into, it's gonna be like just a management, or it's gonna be a tool. It's still gonna see the full Windows operating system and everything, but Hyper-V takes over and boots and is the one that who manage or interact with this physical server directly. Also, from your Windows client, you still can do that as well, but it's a little bit different. So if I go to Control Panel, if you search from the menu Control Panel, then you should be able to see Add Programs and Features. Let me just click on Programs and then turn here Windows Features. And in your Windows client, you can install Hyper-V. So this is the Hyper-V tools. It's already installed for me, but and then once it's installed, it will ask you to restart your operating system, and then you should have the Hyper-V manager, which looks like this. This is where you can create your VMs. Okay, so normally you need to create a network interface. So as I mentioned, like, when you go to that Hyper-V server or Hyper-V settings, you can actually create your own network, and then start to create your own virtual machine as well. But here you can see from the Virtual Switch Manager, you have the ability to create external, which means is that the server can talk to the public internet, or the servers with that will use that switch. So they can talk to the public internet. Here they can talk to each other if they have that network switch, and then this is the private, which means is that it's only between the physical server and the guest operating system or the guest virtual machine. So you can create a virtual switch here. Let's use external, very creative name, and then it will use the network interface, my network interface here. You might have more than one for high availability. Once it's done, then you can create a virtual machine. All right, so here, this is where you're gonna specify, let's say, like here there's a specific folder, but let's just do another folder than this one. So just use the C drive, and I will call it my database or web server, for example, virtual machine, right? So here I'll call it web 1, and this is the location or the actual virtual data. So there's generation 1 and generation 2. So generation 1 used to be like, the legacy Windows Server operating system or 32-bit. But for any 2012 R2 or whatever, moving forward, you just pick your generation 2. This is where you allocate how much memory that you would like to give that virtual machine. So for my case here, I am gonna allocate 4 GB of memory, and I'm gonna use a dynamic, which means is that if the virtual machine needs more memory, just go ahead and assign from it. And then here I'm gonna choose my external Hyper-V switch. And then, as you can see, it's telling me, hey, I'm going to create a virtual hard disk or VHDX, which is basically that will host the operating system. So and it's gonna consume 127 gig, maybe 60 gig. For me, I don't want to consume so much from my computer. Then here it's telling you where's the ISO to install the operating system. So if you have the ISO, then you can reference it right away. I don't have it at the moment, but then I can also select choose operating system later, and then I can click on finish. So here you can use a virtual CD, a virtual desk, a virtual mouse, everything. So if I just open this VM, it can start like a normal computer. So right now I don't have any operating system. So if I try to start it now, I won't be able to see anything. It will just tell me like, hey, there is no operating system basically. So you can see Microsoft Hyper-V and no operating system, so nothing is booting here. So no matter I do Control Alt Delete, nothing. So I have to install an operating system. Again, for anyone who's been a while in the in the IT, they will know what is Hyper-V and what is a virtual machine. But for you, I just wanted to let you know where it's actually coming from. Okay, so before the cloud computing, there was anyone is using on-premises today, they have like a virtualization platform installed on top of a physical server, and that physical server they create virtual machines from it, and then these virtual machines, they can consume it however they want.